and welcome to another edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. It is Monday, November 7th, 2022, and this is episode 33. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. We're back with another great episode, and this is part 2 of the continuation of the look at the history of a toy. Well, you know, that's been pretty much very popular. Goes all the way back to the 1950s, matter of fact, I think. 1953 to be exact. We covered a lot of it so far here on the show. We're going to continue where we picked up, where we left off, and do a whole lot of other good stuff here, where we're looking at part 2 of Matchbox cars right here on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Alright, welcome to the show. I'm Jason Nicanio, your gracious host and moderator of this fantastic series we call Jay's Retro Toys and Games. And we're going to pick up where we left off with our look at Matchbox cars. We were in the section of the purchase of the Mattel and the present day. That's where we were right now. So let's continue on. Also in 2005, certain yesteryear castings, which had been released during the Tyco early Mattel era as part of the Muscle Car series of Matchbox collectibles, were re-released in 1971, style retro packaging and retro wheels as Super Kings, considered by many to be a strange name choice since models of that nature had been called Speed Kings in the 70s. Following the Hero City fiasco, the name being dropped in late 2005 in favor of MBX Metal, Mattel showed interest in reviving the Matchbox brand. However, since Matchbox Collectibles Inc. was shut down, Mattel's interests have always been concentrated on very few series of the Matchbox legacy. That is the I-75, the Skybusters, the Convoys, and to some extent the two-packs concept, although now sold under a different name called the Hitch and Haul. Although some numbers of Super Kings in yesteryears were released at times, no new castings were created. Battle Kings reappeared on the market in 2006, not as king-size models, but rather as a name of military-oriented two-pack style sets of regular-size models. The Dinky name has effectively been reduced to a few rebranded Matchbox I-75 cars on the international market, normal models with Dinky Tampo printed on the base plate, and no further investment in dies or tooling was made. It appeared that the classic brand, once saved by Matchbox, would be allowed by Mattel to languish or die once again. In 2019, Matchbox launched the Moving Parts line, which are vehicles that incorporate opening features such as hoods, doors, and some vehicles in the series harken back to older Lesney castings, such as the Volkswagen Type 3 and the Pontiac Grand Prix. These vehicles usually retail for twice the amount of a standard Matchbox car. Then on Thursday, April 15th of last year, Matchbox announced that they will make a 1/64 scale Tesla Roadster in 2022 made out of 99% recycled materials, about 62.1% recycled zinc, 1% stainless steel, and 36.9% of recycled plastic, and classified as a carbon-neutral product. This move was made as part of a plan for the brand to become more environmentally sustainable, and Matchbox pledged to make all of their cars and packaging out of 100% recycled materials by the year 2030. The first Matchbox cars to feature recycled packaging will be the Power Grabs assortment. In addition, Matchbox launched an EV theme pack with a Nissan Leaf, a Toyota Prius, a BMW i3, a BMW i8, and the International E-Star, and also announced the EV charging stations will be featured in 2 play sets to encourage environmental consciousness among children. This was part of the green strategy. Now, Lesney gradually increased the number of models in its standard Matchbox series range from 3 in 1953 to 75 in 1960. The I-75 range would then remain at 75 models for almost 40 years. When a new model was released, an existing model was discontinued, its number being reallocated. This meant that dealer display stands only had to accommodate 75 models. New owners, Mattel, expanded to regular U.S. market Matchbox series to 100 models for 1999, but changed it back to 75 models for 2001. The U.S. range was again increased from 75 to 100 models for 2008, and then further expanded to 120 models for 2012, then to 125 in 2016. These changes were not applied in all markets. The actual numbering of the I-75 series number on the individual models, starting in the mid-50s, numbers were cast onto the base plates that was discontinued in the Universal era. And this was in part due to the new concept of offering country-specific lines for many of the key markets, which led to the same castings being used under different numbers in different markets. In recent years, Mattel, a sequential casting number, example like an MB687, unrelated to any I-75 number used in any market, is cast onto each base plate. The relevant I-75 series number is printed on the blister pack or box. Other Matchbox ranges also had identifying numbers cast on their bases, many of which were reallocated as older models were retired and new ones introduced. The numbering conventions are listed in the series overview section below. However, with the exception of the yesteryear line, which was held to 16 models for well over a decade, before being expanded greatly, there was no other case of a strict series size limitation by Lesney. The smaller models, the regular size of the I-75 and related series, are often classified as 1/64 scale, though they range from smaller than 1/100th to much larger than 1/64, and measure about 2.5 to 3 inches or 6.5 to 7.5 centimeters in length. Matchbox has also manufactured models in approximately 1/43 scale, sometimes called king size, later labeling them Speed Kings or Super Kings, or later, particularly in the Matchbox collectibles line, models of yesteryear or Dinky, which measure about 3.5 to 4 inches or 9 to 10 centimeters in length. This was basically the same scale as Corgi or Dinky. Matchbox designers favored this larger size because it permitted more detail, and the 1/43 models, they're still made, but are primarily marketed as collectibles rather than as toys. And while the actual car models in these series tend to be around the 1/43 scale, other vehicle types, like trucks, construction, and farm vehicles, hovercraft, tanks, etc., they vary greatly in the same manner as do the regular size models. In addition to these series, we had a whole lot. There's an overview of principal diecast series. There's I-75, there's the accessories, the models of yesteryear, major packs, king size, Scorpion, Skybusters, the Battle Kings, and so forth. And in addition to these, a series of gift sets numbered G with the number were sold by Lesney, each comprising models from the diecast ranges, sometimes from different ranges within a single set. These sets were updated, changed regularly for various reasons, but mainly to ensure that the models contained therein were current. Set numbers were often reallocated in the same fashion as for normal series. Some sets included model variations officially released only in the sets. Generally, these were variant colors, while others contained additional non-diecast items not available without the set. Let's see. Model collectability and value. Not unlike other classical collectible items such as stamps, coins, or real cars, the value and collectability of model cars such as Matchbox is driven primarily by 3 factors: rarity, condition, and popularity of the model, with one additional important factor: packaging. The rarity of a model car can refer either to the model in general or to the variation thereof. Some models are produced in very limited quantities, and prior to the evolution of purpose-made collectibles, that's the Matchbox collectibles, the models made in intentionally limited quantities to allow a high initial sales price and or force the value to remain high on the collector's market. Rarity was based on the simple criterion that the production numbers of a model were low. This was not generally due to any specific intent by the manufacturer. For example, this could occur if the mold or the die broke, or if the model proved to be unpopular and was replaced very quickly, creating a situation in which normal numbers of the model never reached the market. Variations are changes in production models. The most common three types are changes in the materials used in the dies or in the color scheme. For instance, early Matchbox models were entirely made of metal, including the tires or the wheels. However, within the first years of production, Lesney switched to plastic wheels. These were silver at first. Later, gray wheels were fitted, followed finally by black wheels. Thus, it was entirely possible that models introduced in the 50s could be fitted with 4 different wheel types during the span of their inclusion in the series, or even more, since there were further variations besides the color or material. And depending on the particular model, a given wheel type might be much rarer than the others. Molds or dies are changed at times, and this is commonly due to weaknesses in the final die-cast product or to difficulties in production caused by the die. Often the changes are very minor, even minute, and may occur in places that are not clearly visible at first glance, especially in cases where a weakness was detected early in the production run and the numbers of early versions reaching the market are often quite low. Color changes, now commonplace, a planned marketing tool, were rarer earlier, with most models being produced over the span of their inclusion in the series in just 1 or 2 major color schemes. However, not only the color of the model's body must be regarded, but rather the entire model, including base plate, interior windows, and thus changes in different components, can lead to a factorial increase in variation possibilities. Age also plays an important part in making a model rare. A model produced in standard quantities in the 1950s will likely be much rarer today than one produced in similar quantities in the 80s. The better the condition of the model, the higher its value. Model conditions are usually expressed in a simple, somewhat subjective manner in categories such as mint, excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. Simply put, a mint model, one in factory fresh condition, is worth far more than a sandbox quality model with chipped paint, rusty axles, and broken parts. However, to be valuable, the condition must be original. Repainting or repairing a model reduces its value greatly, even if the final result can be impressive. The presence or lack of packaging affects the value of a model. A mint box model can in some cases be worth 50 to 100% more than the mint model without the box, depending on the age of the model, the condition of the box, and even the variations of the box. As box designs were changed regularly, some boxes or even model box combinations were produced in lower quantities and thus became quite difficult to find. As an example, the first 7 I-75 models were packaged in a Moco Lesney boxes, on which the word Moco was written in script. Today, these boxes are extremely valuable. The later 50s boxes, including the second editions of those from model numbers 1 to 7, had Moco in the same capital letters as the words surrounding it. Even in the era of blister packs, the role of packaging has not really diminished. However, as the box concept is tremendously important for the brand Matchbox, the presence of a box usually affects the value of a model significantly more than does a blister pack. The exception to this is blister packs from the box era, particularly those in which the box was also included. Now, the popularity of the model affects its value both directly and indirectly. And for example, if 2 models were produced in similar quantities in the 50s, one an interesting sports car and the other a rather dull military vehicle, then the former probably disappeared from store shelves much faster. Its value, then in non-monetary terms, was higher. And though the former model may therefore be found relatively ubiquitously in British or American households, often it was either played with, where the condition is poor, or it has a particular treasure-like sentimental value, often the case with, for example, horse-drawn models, so that the model will be kept forever, even by those who do not collect. Thus, it becomes harder to find in good condition on the collector's market. while the less popular model can still be found mint boxed in large quantities. And as it is likely that the sports car's initial popularity remains unbroken, its value is now also driven upward by this fact as well. Since the advent of organized Matchbox collectors clubs, see below the Matchbox collectors, the models and their variations have been coded and cataloged, and values have been roughly established. The major collectors organizations, that's the NAMC, the AIM, and the Matchbox USA, MICA, and the MBXF Forum, well, as well as individual authors, they have published numerous works describing the various Matchbox ranges, including the models and their variations. Whereas the best of these were formerly available mainly through the clubs themselves. It is now possible to buy books on Matchbox from various publishing houses, and these are available not only in English but in several other languages, particularly German as well. As there have been multiple reference catalogs over the years, there is no complete consensus on the coding of a model. However, a standard code might read as such: Y-15A6. This would mean the sixth variation of the first A release of model number Y15. Many books now include a price guide, but there is no real consensus on the actual monetary value of a model. The numbers in any of the publications give relative information, but not more, and it remains a collector's market, and accordingly, prices fluctuate greatly. Well, by the 1960s, it was clear to Lesney that sales in certain already profitable markets might be increased by providing the markets with models of their own. Since the regular series was primarily aimed at the UK and the US models for the Commonwealth and North America, they could easily be integrated into it. But early on, Germany established itself as a major market for Matchbox models, not, however, one large enough to warrant numerous castings of German cars in the line. And certainly the major internationally known German brands like Volkswagen and Mercedes, as well as Magaris Deutz, were represented in the range, but in order to cater to that market using the dies at hand, it was decided to develop a model version just for Germany. The model chosen was the number 25 Bedford tanker, which for the German market was changed from its usual yellow and white colors and BP livery due to a blue and white model with Aral decals, or Aral decals. And this first regional issue was followed by a second when the Bedford was retired from the series and replaced effectively by the number 32 Leyland tanker. This model too was produced in a blue and white Aral version for Germany. This proved to be a successful strategy, which was then expanded in the late 70s and the 1980s. At first, it was again Germany for which models were produced, as many as 6 at a time. Palazzi cars were developed, trucks offered with German logos, etc., some even in specially constructed boxes. Later, the idea was expanded to larger models. Yesteryears, such as the previously mentioned Y12 Ford Model T van, or numerous Super Kings models, and to other countries like Australia, Denmark, etc., even including regional issues for the UK or the US. And for a short period in the 70s and 80s, Lesney also produced or licensed Matchbox production in other countries. Having started by developing several model variants in England specifically for the Japanese market, they later produced 4 superfast models in Japan based on Japanese prototypes. Dies and tooling were later also licensed to groups in Hungary and Bulgaria in an attempt to gain a foothold in the communist bloc countries. And although only standard models were produced there, there were numerous color variations, some of which are very rare today. Beginning in the Matchbox International era, it was decided that the line should be regionalized more generally, which led to multiple versions of the I-75 series being available. And depending on where in the world the customer was, almost the entire range might be different from in the rest of the world. And although this philosophy is still followed today to some extent, it has been largely scaled back. And usually there are ranges for the US and the rest of the world, with some local mini-series still being offered in certain countries. For example, an annual 12-car release in Germany called Stars of Cars, or a similar set of models in the UK called The Best of the British. Almost from the beginning of the Matchbox series, Commerce recognized the possibilities offered by providing a model of a relevant vehicle to their customers as a method of advertising. In the mid-1950s, for example, it was not rare for dairy companies to provide the Matchbox No. 7 horse-drawn milk float to customers as a token of appreciation for their business. And the first issue to be purposely made for a particular customer is now the famous Bell's Balaison's No. 46 Guy Pickford's removal van. The promotional issue, made for a shop in southern England, differed drastically in colors, decals, and box from the standard model in Pickford's livery. Besides fulfilling its original purpose, it also became highly sought after by collectors. A few further models were made in the late 60s or early 1970s, amongst them several bus models and the famous NAMC promotional version of the No. 32 Leyland tanker, the first model made exclusively for collectors. See below for the Matchbox collectors. However, the major shift in the number and value of promotionals began with the use of London bus models in the 1970s, particularly the superfast No. 17 Londoner bus. With this model, what had been a trickle turned into a flood, as it was used by countless companies as advertising material for their business customers. The success of this concept and its value to the Matchbox brand was huge, leading to a rapid expansion of the idea, both the numbers of models used and the introduction of models offering good advertising space, such as the No. 38 Ford Model A van, into the series. And again, in the size of the models, the yesteryears, and offering the Super Kings as well. Eventually, almost any model could be, and indeed was used for promotional purposes. Some companies only allow extremely limited numbers of their models to be made. For example, the K16 Quaker State model, while others have them produced in large quantities to serve as on-pack offers, for example, or even put them on general but limited release, such as the set of models commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Ford Motor Company. It is one of the most difficult aspects of collecting. Promotionals values can skyrocket within months of their being issued. Today, promotionals remain an important part of Matchbox's business. As mentioned above, history, expansion in the superfast era, the popularity of both regional issues and promotionals were recognized by the company and played a role in the development of models designed not specifically as toys, but with the collector in mind. This realization of the market potential of catering to collectors led to a major shift in the entire die-cast industry as other brands followed, while Matchbox continued to refine the idea into what later became Matchbox Collectibles. And we will stop there and pick up with part 3 of Matchbox. Next time we'll look at Matchbox Collectibles, the scale model kits, the current status, other products in the series, and a whole lot more on this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. I'm Jason Icanio. Thank you for joining me here tonight. Hope you had a great time. We will see you on Wednesday for episode 34, where we'll pick up with part number 3 of Matchbox. From all of us here at Jay's Retro Toys and Games, please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And, of course, be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid kiss. Have a great night. We'll see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Democratic Network for great more content like this one.